Alrighty, guys, and welcome back to the NBL show presented by Fox Sport. I am your host, Josh Higgins, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Jai Shadlow. Jai, mate, welcome back to the NBL show.
Thanks for having me again. It's been, 2 weeks since we last filmed. I've had a lot of people message me going, where the hell are we? But we're finally back. We're going to be consistent. Each episode is going to come in every week until the end of the season. So do not worry, everyone. We're back.
Yeah, massive apologies on that front as well. And I had a bit of stuff going on outside of this as well, which I wasn't able to, unfortunately, make it onto the show the last couple of weeks as well. So from the bottom of my heart, I 100% apologize for that. But I think one thing, Jai, which we're going to jump into very, very quickly is sort of what is on the cards for us and what has been on the card for us, I guess, over the last couple of weeks. And whilst the NBL show hasn't been going, we've still been getting some basketball content at Fox Sport Australia. So, mate, let's talk a little bit about this series that you're putting together, because you're talking to a couple, and you have already spoken to a couple of, I would say, the bigger named imports and probably the more loved imports over the last couple of years. But you've got some big guests coming up as well, mate. So give us a little bit of an insight into your new segment and show that you're producing.
Yeah, so if people haven't been paying attention, so it's just a segment I started called NBL Alumni. We just speak to former imports of the league. I feel, the NBL or basketball, any basketball outside the NBA, we suffer from getting used to imports, liking them, befriending them, and becoming our favourite player, and they're gone a year later. Or it's very rare for them to stay beyond 2 or 3 years. So I feel like in the NBL Alumni show, we get to talk to them about their time in the league, where they've been, get some inside stories and stuff. Like when I was in episode 1, we spoke to Alan Williams, and we did a quick thing like he's playing in Japan. He did a little story on how him and Trey Cal were going to have dinner together, and Trey was going to show him his championship ring from last year, which, like, for me, I find that stuff really cool. So tomorrow we'll have the episode released with an article on. I worked with Jordan Crawford. He has some really good insights and some little backstories into Tasmania's championship run, and he explained what the team did after the championship win, which is really interesting. Episode 3, we've got Antonius Cleveland. Obviously, everyone knows him. He's currently in Russia at the moment. And we'll have I've got some more players lined up. Hopefully, Justin Robinson's going to be a bit more of a juicy one. I feel like he's got some stuff to vent. I'm not sure the context of that, but that's the one to definitely watch out for. But it's a fun segment, and if people are liking it, just send comments on the YouTube channel everywhere. If you want to see a player, it doesn't have to be a very popular player. I'm happy to speak to any player, even if they play 3 games, something like Tyler Cook when he was here for Phoenix. I'll chat to anyone. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, mate. I think I love the work that you do, and this is what has made, not what has made, this is a part of what has made, what you do on X in particular so great, because there's not only just the news breaking stuff, which is also extraordinary. There's the statistics and I guess allowing your audience and the broader NBL community to continue to be up to date with all these imports who, like you mentioned, play 1 season, 1 game, or have a long career over here and following where they go from here as well. And, I just love what you're doing. And the thing as well is when I was listening to the Alan Williams one as well, and I think you posted it on socials, the Zylan Cheatham comments, they caught my eye. 100% he's a guy who has just been playing out of his skin in recent weeks, and he's just an incredible guy. And that was a really nice little thing to hear on that particular episode. And, kind of talking with Jordan, which you guys will see and go check out right now, where you asked him about the Cairns Taipans things, which were rumored throughout the year as well. So, there's plenty of things and plenty of information coming out of these episodes as well. So keep up the great work, mate. And like Jai mentioned as well, comment even down below if you want to see a particular player, like Jai said, even coaches and things like that as well. It's more of a, looking back in the past and having a bit of a chat to a couple of the people who are fan favorites and everything like that as well, mate. So keep it up. But in terms of, I guess, what is coming out on Fox Sport Australia's website, if you want to get involved, search Fox Sports NBL on your Google, Safari, whatever you want to do as well to keep up to date with all the latest news. And obviously go and check us out at Fox Sport Basketball on Facebook. But big things coming out this week. We've got the usual stuff, talking points, burning questions, power rankings are out as well. I, in particular, are building a bit of an article about the NBL Next Star program and the players involved as well, with Liam Santa Maria and Michael Hubin as well there from basketball.com.au. And then we've also got a couple of other things in the works as well with Brian Gorge and Xavier Cooks on my behalf.
Yeah.
Jai, mate, what have you got coming out this week?
Yeah, so with the NBL alumni stuff, they'll be out tomorrow, and then I'm going to do my fortnightly casualty award. So I think lately there's a lot of players. Every time I feel like we're creeping up to a healthy league, someone goes down. Unfortunately, Shea earlier Melbourne United just confirmed that he's out for 2 rounds, and post-round fever break with the hamstring injury again. I want to touch on Will Magnay later because I think there's a bit more concern there than what Tasmania's leading on. So yeah, there's stuff in the works, and like you said, keep up to date. Go search on Google. Will be the first result there whenever you search NBL, most things. So yeah, we're always covering it, and
yeah, definitely, mate. It's been to be honest with you, it's been a massive week, and we're going to break down. And I guess sort of the good thing as well with having potentially 2 weeks off is you're going to get a lot of content in this particular episode as well, because there's been plenty going on. But let's dive straight into it, mate, because it is going to be a big show. And the round 9 preview is where we do start as well. And some incredible results, some incredible games, and obviously some really sour news. And that's where we want to start it off there as well. The first game of the round was between the New Zealand Breakers and Brisbane Bullets. The New Zealand Breakers won this particular game 113-84, but that wasn't the main storyline. The biggest storyline of this was an MVP fancy Casey Prather going down with a season-ending knee injury. Now, I'm not going to lie, mate. I was over here with my missus and my mother-in-law, and we were watching this game, and I'm not a super emotional guy, but to be honest with you, mate, I think I nearly shed a tear for Casey just watching him on the floor, and just the look straight away that he knew something was wrong with his knee. And, you know, he's obviously dealt with so many injuries over the past couple of years as well to get back to where he is. So absolutely devastating, mate. But, mate, they were down 31 points. You've put it in the run sheet. Why was he still out there? And I think that's the big question on everyone's lips, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think hindsight plays a thing in this. So it's like I can easily sit here and say, like, oh, why does Doolittle have him out? But you can't predict he's going to get injured. But I know there are coaches out there that would, if they were playing United 2 days later, would probably keep him out there just to keep the fitness up and everything. There was still 6 minutes to go, but like the fact that they were playing United in 2 days and they were down 31 points, I'd probably critique him and say that's not a very smart move. And like, I don't really expect, not to be like too harsh as I don't really expect smart IQ plays from a guy who's just coached like 10 games in his NBL career. So you can add that one and, you know, put it in the bin because it's not going to go on his resume.
Yeah, it's such a tough one because the thing is, there's no gain. I know you say, like, when you sort of spoke about there, you know, we might all be in that situation. We might all do the same thing or whatever the case is. But like the way you've got to look at it when you're coaching is there a gain for me to have this player out there on the court, down by 31 points? There's no gain in that. And I know Casey Prather is an incredible player, but how many times in professional basketball anywhere in the world have we seen a team come back from 31 points down with 6 or 7 minutes to go in a game? It just doesn't really happen. Yeah. And the way that Brisbane were playing in that particular game, there was just no way that was going to happen at all. And I think, obviously, outside of the injury, the Breakers are the biggest talking point. And I know they went 1-1 this round, lost to Perth over here at RSC Arena. But yeah, and you look at a guy like Parker Jackson Cartwright and the way he's able to facilitate and score and lead that team as well at such a high efficiency as well. So I just love the win by the Breakers. And I know, again, we've seen this from the Brisbane Bullets, and this has been probably some of the bigger criticism that we've seen on Stu Lash to start the season. And I don't want to reopen those wounds too much. They you know, had a very disappointing loss, but then against Melbourne United, which we'll touch on very shortly, they go and have one of those games where they just shouldn't have even been close. So you've kind of got to give him a little bit of respect. But just the inconsistencies that we're seeing from this team is, I think, coming down to the coaching staff and the lack of accountability, leadership. And I love Stu's and part of his messaging in post-game press conferences, but he's giving me Adam Ford vibes over the last couple of weeks, where it's more whinging about officiating and things that you kind of can't really control, instead of sort of honing in on the things that you can control. And I think that's starting to really eat me up a little bit, similar with what we're seeing with Justin Tatum who went out there last week and sort of spoke about, I don't want to be a meme again in the NBL. So let's dive into that Brisbane game, though, with Melbourne United. Were you surprised at all with the fight back? They had their backs against the wall, and probably the biggest story out of that as well was Jalen Adams had also been released by the club heading into that game. So, again, down another import, former NBL MVP, but to lose by 6 points, I think they'll sort of build on that with a lot of belief.
Yeah, I think no one expected that. They're up by like over 20 points near half time, and it's just I think you can probably attribute that to more United just probably going back to first gear. And Dean Bickerman might be happy with that. He'd probably be more pissed off than Stu Lash with the free throw discrepancies. But yeah, like that, it's just the inconsistencies, which is really like annoying because I don't think the Stu Lash he clearly can't get the best out of his players. And going back to the whole Prather thing, like I think there is a situation there where I don't know if Stu Lash is anxious to pull. He doesn't have the mental power or mental strength or the toughness to be like, hey, Prather, you're coming off the court. I'm the coach. He just doesn't give me that vibe. So I feel like the players own the coach in this situation, which might be like why Prather maybe not come off because he's like, I don't want to do that. And then fast forward to the United game, Prather's out. They rally. He builds his troops. They rally around this. Let's do it for Prather and stuff. And that type of momentum and mentality with among players, especially young guys, they can actually do a lot. That's a lot of fuel to add to the flames with like trying to come back. And they're down big and they're like, no, we're not going to go out. So I don't see that as Lash being the guy going like hyping everyone up in the locker room at half time. He just does not suit that style. He's too softly spoken. And then in the post-match press conferences, I agree with the Adam Ford comment you made. It's getting a bit repetitive now. I think I made a Twitter post the other day saying he keeps using the same excuse, saying like, oh, you only get one, two, or three games to flush. And like this was one of our games, but it's like you're on the fifth one now. I think it's well and truly flush, mate. It's over. So it's like
now, mate.
Yeah, it's like call a plumber, mate. It's done. And it's just getting a bit repetitive, and then he'll do the little sneaky, subtle like, oh, he'll complain, but then follow up with like, look, I'm not complaining. I'm like, yeah, just own it, like, and then yeah. So it's a hard one. I praise Brisbane for that comeback and that, but I'm not going to look into that and be like, are they on the up and up? So, but we'll touch on like the new imports and stuff after.
Well, let's jump into that right now. That's where I was going to sort of take it right now. So Prather's out, Jalen Adams is released, and there were some rumblings, and Ian Clark was a name that was floated around there for a little bit early on in the days. And I think his name, like a lot of these type of imports, Jordan Crawford, those type of guys who have been around the league now for a couple of years and have proven to be consistent basketball players at the NBL level, their names always get thrown into the mix. And once again, we're starting to see it more and more. Sometimes that sort of conversation comes from an agent picking up the phone and calling a team, hey, interested in Ian Clark? That initial response might be no, but still that they've reached out is a thing that may create some news as well. So, I'm happy they didn't go and sign Ian Clark, to be completely honest. I don't think he's the superstar type of player that this team needs right now to rally behind. I think they're 5-9 right now in the season to really get them going late in the piece. But, Joe, I want you to break down Terry Taylor for me, 26-year-old, 6'4", sort of combo, small forward, power forward type guy as well, bigger body. So can you give us a little bit of an insight into what we may see from Taylor at the Brisbane Bullets for the rest of the season?
Yeah, so I didn't know much about this guy coming in when he was first signed, but if you want to give a comparison, he's similar to Tayshaun Tate.
Jayshawn Tate, yep.
Jayshawn Tate, sorry. When he was at Sydney Kings in NBL 20, I think. Just think that undersized, like power forward, small forward. Like he is 6'4", but he does like playing the power forward role, quite strong, quite long, very good timing with his reboundings, which helps with his size. Just a kind of a jack of all trades, not going to really light it up from the three-point line, but he is a good shot blocker as well. I think they've done well. I'm not sure now. I think what Mason Jones, I'm going to use this as like forever the staple of the example is I'm going to give this a Mason Jones experiment, like awesome stats, G League stats, like he averaged 18 points, 8.7 rebounds a game. It was Stockton Kings, did play with Mason Jones in the NBA G League last season, but does that translate to this team with this roster in this environment? So we'll see how that goes. I think right now I'm saying I think it's a good signing, but we'll see under Stu Lash. I'm not sure how players will feel coming from the G League, being under experienced coaches to come into Brisbane being coached by Stu Lash. Because if people are kidding themselves if that's players don't think about that, because they do.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I want to go with this a little bit as well. The undersized power forward element to that, we've been 6'4". I think it can work in the NBL in the right matchups, though. I think he's going to spend a lot of his time at that small forward position for the Brisbane Bullets when they're playing those bigger teams, like guys like Christian Doolittle for the Perth Wildcats and Xavier Cooks for the Sydney Kings, where you've got legitimate 6'9", 6'10" power forwards in those particular rosters. But having the mixture of a guy who is athletically gifted in the open court, which we have seen from Taylor in his career so far, who can get the ball and run with a physical play style, next to Tyrell Harrison inside, it's a nice little combination. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, when Jay Sean Tate was playing for the Kings, I believe Andrew Bogut was as well. And you've got that dominant force inside, which also helped to complement Tate in the sort of open court and also on the offensive end as well. So I think it's going to be a nice mixture. Dakota Matthews is, I think, going to benefit from this as well. Having some more help around him. I think he's going to be a very good NBL player. 5 games this season, 11.6 points per game. He's a 3-point sharpshooter. We do know that. With more key pieces around him, he's only going to find easier shots. And that's where we go next. And I think this is the biggest funny thing. We spoke about this with, when this whole thing was going on, and you're like, guess who's come out to Brisbane when all the news dropped? And I was like, I don't know. Who? And you're like, it's a former import. And I'm going like, last year, the year before that. And you're like, Javon Freeman-Liberty. And my jaw dropped. I was like, this has to be the biggest joke we've ever seen. A guy who leaves the club for personal reasons that, wasn't really opened up to. And now it's been reported that there were things, sort of going on with maybe him and the coaching staff and everything like that. And he's wanting to have a fresh start and give it another go. But Javon Freeman-Liberty is back in Brisbane, and this just adds to the drama of Brisbane, to be completely honest with you. And I saw that was the main sort of storyline with all the Brisbane Bullets fans. Here we go again. So, I don't know, mate. What are we expecting from Javon Freeman-Liberty? I pose this question right now. He's a combo guard who I think needs the ball in his hands more, and maybe that was a little bit of a factor with Jalen Adams at the starting point guard position and holding and sort of facilitating more than what he was. Do you think he floats into that sort of point guard role? I know Mitch Norton's back and everything like that as well, but do you think the ball is going to be in his hands a lot now that he's back in this club?
I mean, it has to, right? Like he's come back. There's expectations for him to perform. I remember the 2 games he did play with him and Adams on the court. There was a bit of chemistry issues because I just specifically remember a play where they're both near half, but just got to the line over half court, and they passed it back to each other like 3 times because they're like, no, you take it. He's like, no, you can take it. He's just like, well, someone's got to, facilitate the ball, you guys. Let's do something about it. I think, the departure of Jalen Adams, I don't think that's a reason for him to come back. I think that's just random timing. It's just a coincidence. But, I think he will have the ball in his hands more. I think there'll be games or situations where he requires just to score. And then he will facilitate. Like I think he's already, I know it's only 2 games, but he averaged like 5 assists. So I really can see him being like an 18, 7 and 5.5 assist kind of guy. Like there will be games where he drops 25 points for sure. Very athletic, very gifted. It's just his mental game. As long as he's happy being in Australia in the league and he's ready to showcase to the world that, he wants to come back to play in the NBA, this is now his perfect time to do it.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit more underlining to this as well for his decision to come back. And I wonder if clubs around the world and teams around the world, seeing now this is the second sort of place that he's left, and it doesn't matter what the circumstances are, if you start and sign somewhere and don't complete your contract, that will start to ruin your reputation no matter where you go. And I reckon there's an element of maybe not necessarily he couldn't get anything else, but maybe he couldn't get anything good because of the sort of reputation that had been going on and had built now with 2 different clubs with him leaving very early on in the piece. So I think he played 2 games for Manizar or whatever it is, basket. Manisa, there we go. And then now he's obviously played 2 games or a couple of games for the Brisbane Bullets as well, and then left again. So I reckon there's a little bit of that involved with this as well. But nonetheless, exciting to see him back in the league. I think this can be a slight catapult for the Brisbane Bullets. But anyways, let's move away from the Bullets because we've probably nearly spent the better part of 15 minutes talking about them. But I want to pose this question to you right now, Jai. The Adelaide 36ers, the South East Melbourne Phoenix, the Melbourne United, the Perth Wildcats, and the Sydney Kings all walked away with wins this week. The Adelaide 36ers had 2 wins, with one against the Tasmania Jack Jumpers and then the second one in overtime against the Cairns Taipans, which we'll talk about that particular game a little bit later on. You had the South East Melbourne Phoenix beating the Cairns Taipans. You have Melbourne United defeating the Brisbane Bullets. You had the Perth Wildcats defeating the Breakers and the Sydney Kings defeating the Illawarra Hawks. The question I have on my mind right now for you, mate, is the top 5 set this year? We've got Melbourne United, the Adelaide 36ers, South East Melbourne Phoenix, the Sydney Kings, and the Perth Wildcats currently in the top 5. I'm not saying that's the exact order they're going to finish in, but are those 5 teams absolute locks when we're coming around to finals time?
Yeah, I think Cairns and New Zealand, unless New Zealand go on a generational run, which who knows, I doubt it though, but they're pretty much locked for bottom 2. I think Brisbane will make a slight surge just because of the talent on the team. Like, you can't not. They'll scrape 6th or 5th. But, I think the top 5 right now, it'd be pretty, shocking if I saw Tasmania, who are in a free fall, Illawarra, who just keep being like a freaking yo-yo right now. I really thought they'd be, just surging after those 2 wins. I think the top 5, we'll come back in February and we'll be I think we'll bang on.
Yeah, and where do you look at? You speak about the 3 teams. I think you can maybe throw the Breakers in that to a degree. I think if they figure it out, there's only going to be 2 things that happen for me personally when I look at the New Zealand Breakers. They either go on a winning streak and they push for finals contention, or 3 rounds down the road, I think Petteri Koppinen will be gone as the head coach if they're not winning games of basketball. I think that's as simple as it is for them. But we'll leave them out of that for now. The Tasmania Jack Jumpers, Illawarra Hawks, and Brisbane Bullets. Who is the final team in the top 6 when we're looking at it for a couple of months' time?
Brisbane Bullets. That's my pick. I think it's Brisbane. Yeah. And not because of Lash. I just think that they have a really good roster right now and a determination on that roster with a lot of young guys will be very impressive. And I just think there's too many character issues on the Illawarra Hawks team. I think that's going to blow over, blow up, sorry. I think that's going to become a real issue. And then the Tasmania, man, I'm really concerned about them. I just think they're in absolute free fall. I think they're if they lose this weekend, that will make it, and I think everyone forgets, defend the island. That will make them 1-7 at home for the season, which will tie a record for their franchise. And they've done it in just 14 games. So it's unfathomable. I can't believe they've only won 1 game.
I want to go into those I want to go into those character things you just sort of briefly touched with the Illawarra Hawks. And I spoke about Adam Ford in the presses. I spoke about Stu Lash in the presses, and I kind of glanced over Justin Tatum with those comments about, I don't want to be a meme talking about JaVale McGee. And quite frankly, I'm getting annoyed with Justin Tatum in these press conferences. And at the start of the year, it was, we're losing and I'm doing a 5-minute press conference and I will not be answering any questions. And that is as simple as it is. Get me out of it. And I was even in the room for that one against the Perth Wildcats. And I'm not going to lie, it was incredibly hard to watch that going on. Yeah. Fast forward to the last couple of weeks, they've been winning some games. He's been quite positive in the press conference. He then decides once again to go down the JaVale McGee pathway of whinging about the non-calls. Would that be super frustrating? 100%. But if it's not working in the press conferences, do more at NBL headquarters to try to show clips of what needs to be done from the referees. Because as a player, and when I'm hearing excuses from my coaches, where it's not really about the players aren't putting in enough effort or the players this or the players that. And it doesn't have to be super critical and super negative, but there needs to be some onus on a player. You're a professional sporting athlete. You need to be performing. And if the constant cop-out is we're not getting enough foul calls, JaVale McGee's not getting looked after, the sort of lapses in concentration we're seeing on the court, I think comes back to the accountability that he's not really putting on his players in those post-game press conferences. Sometimes they are the best avenue after a disappointing loss to put the onus on a player or the team or whatever the case is. So I'm quite frankly getting fed up with the Illawarra Hawks. Their roster is as good enough to compete with the Perths, the Sydneys, the South East Melbournes, the Adelaides and Melbourne United. JaVale McGee single-handedly can do that and can bring you into games. But when you're potentially not holding those leaders and star players to the same sort of standards as you are with these role players, you're losing the fabric of what made the Illawarra Hawks so incredible last season. What are some of thoughts on those comments there, mate?
I 100% agree. I think Tatum's, to me, it sounds like, and this is just all hypothetical and just examples, but it feels like he's got an imaginary gun to his head and it's JaVale McGee's agent saying, like, say good things about my player. Otherwise, we're pulling the plug because there's like some clause where he can just leave whenever he wants. And so Tatum's sweating, going like, oh, I better, can't say anything bad. Like JaVale, when he dominates, he's fantastic. He's hyped. He's got his team around him. But then when situations like that with their loss over the weekend, he kind of removes himself mentally from the team. And then I don't know, just gets this like, I don't know, I'm not calling it like smug or star power and stuff, but it's just like, I'll get up and go. Like, I've spent 10 plus years in the NBA. I don't need this. That's the vibe I get. So it feels like he runs heavily on the success of like what the game was happening around in the game. And Tatum's just like, I don't know if upper management said, do not say anything bad about JaVale. Like, we cannot lose him. Otherwise the season's done. Like, that's the vibe I get.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic in Illawarra, and it's so weird. Like, I know the team has had quite a big turnover, and we've spoken about this before on this show, and we've written in articles about that particular thing, and we're not going to harp on that again. But to have 26 turnovers in that particular game against the Sydney Kings in what was going to be the game of the round, this is what everyone was talking about, and it just was disappointing to see. And he fouls out as well with 9 points, and at the end of the day, it's a loss. They still had won those 2 games prior to that particular matchup, one against Melbourne United. They're now 2-3 in their last 3 games. When you look at it like that, they're still on a positive trend, but there's just some concerning things going on for the Illawarra Hawks. Now, the last game of round number 9, which we will touch on briefly, was that overtime thriller. And I believe John Casey said, I'd love to fact check, I don't really remember any overtime games this year, but I think he said it was the first overtime game of the season. So to see,
I think it was. I don't remember.
Which is just incredible because we've seen so many bloody blowouts and we're still seeing them as well, to be fair. But again, it was nice to see some competitive basketball. And looking more from a Cairns Taipans perspective, it was nice to see some really, really solid basketball from a team perspective as well. So what were your thoughts on the match, mate? The Jack McVeigh and Bryce Cotton duo or duel, I guess you could say, sort of, I guess, takes the storyline. But as a whole, the Cairns Taipans were pretty solid.
Yeah, I think they relied heavily on McVeigh, and he's had 2 back-to-back games now where he's actually shown why he's worth $1 million. I personally don't think he's worth $8 million, but like any player could put up those numbers on the night. I think he had a really good game. He wanted something to prove. I thought I'm really concerned with Admiral Schofield. Like, generally, like, he has, I don't know. I think I had him 3rd as my number 1 in my import list in the preseason because I was really hyped on him. He had a very good resume, very good G League numbers, played in the NBA. I don't know what is going on this season. I think I did a stat where 65% of his shots have been from 3. He's second in the league now for 3-point attempts, despite only shooting just 30%. He settles. He did one play where he drove it and bodied. I forgot he was doing it on, but he bodied and got a layup. And I'm like, can we get that like 10 more times? But then he just settles for the 3. And I'm not sure if he's struggling to be paired up with Andrew Andrews because he's another one I'm a bit concerned about. He can kind of go a bit. He can clearly pass the ball. He's had like 17 assists in his last 2 games, but also he's had like 14 turnovers in his last 2. You can play a bit reckless. But the Cairns are just, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know how you can spend this much money and be a worse team than last season. Like, it's actually impressive. And with Adelaide, the only concern I really have is what's going on with DJ. I just don't know where he falls in this lineup anymore. Like, he's just like fading.
DJ, yeah. I don't want to go too much into that because we could go into that in a number of different ways and talk about his form, talk about his fit in this rotation, talk about how this should be the best basketball he should be playing alongside of a guy like Bryce Cotton. But I'm getting to the point now with DJ where I've just lost belief in any sort of hope that I may have had about him being a franchise player. I just think he's a perennial role player. And
he is not a franchise player. He's literally what you said. He's a role player. I'm not saying he's got an ego, I don't know the guy, but if he wants to be, I want to win the 6th Man of the Year award, he can do that. Yep. But what I saw on the weekend, I think he only scored 3 points and he comes off the bench. I'm like, that's good. Many teams would kill to have someone like DJ coming off the bench.
100%.
But then because he's so hungry and he's watching his teammates run around, as soon as he gets on the court, he takes these stupidest shots because he's like, I only have limited time here, like 16 minutes a game now. Troy Brown Jr.'s just come to the team and everything. And he just puts up insane shots. But if he hits 2, everyone's like, yeah, sweet. And then but he proceeds to miss like 5 after that. But there is a world where they can fit him in. It's just he has to be willing.
I'm going to throw this out to you quickly on DJ. And this is a thought that I've had for a couple of years now. Let me put DJ in an NBA player's career, right? And this is how I'm going to do it. Devin Booker, scoring guard throughout the start of his career, didn't have a lot of success. Chris Paul comes over to the team. He teaches Devin Booker how to be somewhat of a point guard who can also score at a high level. For Dejan Vasiljevic to be an effective player over the next couple of years, he needs to really work on his playmaking and facilitating part of his game to be an effective player in the NBL. Because scoring alone, as we know in professional basketball, no matter where you are, doesn't hold you a job because every player can score. There's going to be someone who can shoot lights out, but can they defend? Can they play make? Can they rebound? Can they do this? Can they get out in transition? Whatever the case is. And that's the biggest challenge right now for DJ. And I love that Mike Wells has put him on the bench, but he needs to learn how to potentially run that second unit and not just play like a player who is ball hungry. And when he gets at his first thought is to just shoot the ball. So that's where I'm going to go with him. I don't want to go too much into it. I've been critical of Dejan Vasiljevic in the past. I don't want to sound like the Kane Corns of the NBL and say, hey, put the radio aside for now, mate. Let's just focus on hoops and not talking a big game. I love when players come out and talk like that, but I just want to see the performance backing it up on the court as well. But we'll leave it there. Let's jump into 5 segments in 5 minutes. You've got 3 questions for me in this particular one, mate. I've got 2 for you. So I hand it over to you first to ask the first question. And like we mentioned, we've got 1 minute to answer these particular questions. We have a bit of a back-to-back after that as well. So take it away, mate. What is the first question?
All right, so the first question is, with this round coming up, will Illawarra Hawks, who play Adelaide and Melbourne United, bounce back?
Quick answer, absolutely no. I think in this particular game against the LA 36ers is probably going to be their best chance of a win. I think Melbourne United are going to be so hungry after losing that game a couple of weeks ago to the Illawarra Hawks, a team who they haven't been able to officially get the monkey off their back after the grand final loss as well. I think they're going to be super hungry and will dominate the Illawarra Hawks. So I'm going to rule that game out. The Adelaide 36ers is the game. If they can, in a way, dominate down low. If JaVale McGee can get a hold of Isaac Humphries and Nick Rakosevich, and Zylan Cheatham doesn't have the type of game he had against the Tasmania Jack Jumpers in the first game of round number 9 for them, I think that's a chance. But I am going to lock in that the Adelaide 36ers and Melbourne United will both beat the Illawarra Hawks in round number 10. All right, Jai. So your first question in this particular one here, are the Tasmania Jack Jumpers in trouble for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think judging by losing Will Magnay is a big one. And I think we all said this during the year before the season started, when we were a bit unsure if Magnay was going to go in the NBA or not. And we're all like holding our breath if Memphis Grizzlies going to sign him. We're going to be like, who are they going to replace him with? He signed and they brought in David Johnson, Bryce Hamilton and Tiger Campbell. Awesome, although David Johnson only played 2 games. The concern now is he's got bone bruising in his leg, and I've spoken to some players and some coaches. These guys know their stuff. They've been around players like that. That is no joke, that stuff. That will linger for a while, especially with an athletic big man. So the report of Tasmania Jack Jumpers saying that he'll be back after round 10, I do not think. I honestly will not be shocked if they come out post fever break and say he's done till next year. Like, I would not be shocked. And then that just and it's consistent. He's done it the last 2 seasons. His body's just not healthy at the moment. He's clearly playing through injury. The concern is Kobe Williamson is not the guy. You cannot. I don't know. He is, and there's a lot of people who complain on Twitter about this, but he's like DP level. He needs to regress to progress, if that makes sense. He needs to go back, train a bit, and get back and stronger, because he got bodied so many times when he was on the floor. And then the team's just, I think you were mentioning it before, the team's just not a very Roth team. It's just a lot of young guys. The veterans are falling. Drimich's back injury. It's a bit concerning. Like, the fact the fans have only experienced 1 win in 7 games, and if they lose this weekend, they tie their record for the most home losses, which is concerning because it's not even halfway through the season. I expect them just to keep falling down the ladder, unfortunately.
Yeah, I want to dive in just quickly before we move to my second question on that particular point. And I spoke to you off air, and like, my thoughts of the Tasmania Jack Jumpers is exactly that. This is not a team that is built for a Scott Roth system. This is a team in which the Tasmania Jack Jumpers have said, and I sat down with Darren Smith at the Basketball Fix on my podcast before the off-season. I've spoken about this before on here as well. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to just for a second. And he said to me, we want to be younger, we want to be faster, and they were the key words, younger and faster. I don't think younger and faster fits into Army-style, Navy-style system that Scott Roth runs, where it's about veteran players, defense, grit and grind. That's the sort of style. Not 3 points, not getting out in transition. It's limiting those type of things. And I just don't see the buy-in from these players. And I saw something on Twitter, and I hate campaigning for import jobs, but is it time that they release David Johnson from his contract, potentially? And it's a very, very hard luck story because he's missed time with an injury. But do they really need another scorer, or do they need a solid inside big? Now, I don't know what the market looks like in the whole world right now, but there would be someone who can be better than Kobe Williamson for probably a cheap price if he hasn't got a job right now. So, I don't know. Tough times are going to be in there at Tasmania, but sorry to hijack your answer and question there, mate. What do you got for me for the second question?
Yeah, just to quickly harp on that, I think everyone, I realized this today, I totally forgot that TJ Starks was in the league, and now he's just, and obviously he's gone. Like, he's just, and he had one good game, and then he just didn't pop off at any time after that. But I just totally forgot about that today because he only played 5 games. All right, second question for you is, who needs to step up for the Perth Wildcats now that Jaron really has got a hamstring injury?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and there's probably a number of ways I'm going to go about this, but I'm going to say it's Christian Doolittle. I think we've finally seen the makings of what we've probably been waiting for against the New Zealand Breakers on Saturday night. We had 15 points in the last quarter, 25 points and 14 rebounds, I think was his stat line. I might have got the 2 mixed around a little bit there as well. But I think what we're seeing from him now is the closing is coming back, which we saw late in the piece last season. And his playmaking ability as a point forward only enhances this team. They're a big team already. You've got Elijah Pepper playing as kind of that point guard role. And, that's the way that they're sort of setting the team right now. He's clearly not a point guard. But then you got David Duke Jr., you've got Dylan Windler, Christian Doolittle, and Joe Lawala-Chul as that starting lineup in their most recent game. So I think the biggest thing is Christian Doolittle because the ball is going to be in his hands a lot. And if you're looking at a second, it's probably going to be David Duke Jr. as well in that sort of role where he is going to facilitate as that combo guard, but also score and defend at a high level as well. So it's a massive hole. I don't think we probably ever said this in NBL history where losing a DP for up to 8 weeks is a massive absence for a team, but it really is. It's a massive absence what Jaron really sort of, has done here. And I wanted to quickly touch on John Riley's comments as well. I don't know if you caught them in the presser. They were asked about, 8 weeks. It's a big hamstring, 3 to 4 week injury normally. And John's response wasn't like, a father response. It was like, we're going to see what a professional player Jaren is, because if he doesn't do his rehabbing properly and doesn't look after himself, he will be back in 8 weeks. But if he does, he'll be back sooner. And we're going to see what sort of player and person he is. And I absolutely love that
That's
from
a
a
good
father and a
response.
coach. So, yeah, I just think the Wildcats are in the right little space right now. They're winning games. They're looking good. But Christian Doolittle, for me, is the guy that needs to step up the most in the absence of Jaren, really. Now, Jai, the last question for you before we get into my last one as well. Were the Cairns Taipans better last year? This is a wild, wild question when you think about it. They are horrible this year, but were they better last year? What are your thoughts?
I think you could get last year's team. If I came to you and said, do you want this last year's team plus $1 million? Everyone's going to choose NBL 25 Cairns Taipans and take the money, because I think it's either money laundering. I don't know what's going on, because they're somehow worse off this season. It's actually remarkable, the fact that they've now spent all this money off season, brought these imports in, debatable, but people say they do have a better roster with the Rain Smiths and stuff. So somehow they're back to the bottom of the ladder, worse offensively, and defensively. Time after time blowout. They've only scored 90 points, I think, twice now this season. Something they did 15 times last year. I don't know what's going on. The common denominator for me is Adam Ford. I think he can coach he can get the best out of young players, but he just cannot. I don't think he's a great offensive coach. And this just seems to be, these guys are struggling. I don't know what's going on, and I don't. If I have to sit here and talk about Stu Lash, Peter Koppinen being coaches that are next on the chopping block, you have to do it with Coach Adam Ford. I don't know why people don't talk about that. He's led the team back-to-back years now, which is really bad records. So something's got to change, and I don't know what's going on. It drives me insane.
I think he's still living off the high of that third place finish a couple of years ago, where they made the semi-final series, lost 2-1 against the Sydney Kings as well. There's still that with this small market team, this no-hoper team. Oh, we made a semi-final series 3 years ago. We can do it. Yeah, I don't know. Let's not go into Adam Ford's conversations. You'll see an article with overreactions or reality in a couple of days at Fox Sport, and that particular topic of Adam Ford is in that one as well. But, Jai, mate, what's the final question of 5 segments in 5 minutes? So
this is an interesting one. It's obviously currently trending today at the moment. So with Montrezl Harrell, if he comes back to the league, what team do you reckon he could land on?
This is an interesting question, and I'll probably start this out by saying this. I don't think he will land at a team this season. I just can't see a team potentially cutting a player who's maybe in the window. Trez is a guy who you go out there and you want to win games with. He's an immediate spark for your team. But if I am going to look at a team potentially where he could fit in quite well, it's actually the New Zealand Breakers. And there's a little bit of conflict of interest there as well, with his agent being also the agent of Isaiah Brockington and Rod Baker. So at the New Zealand Breakers. So that is going to be a bit of an interesting one. I could see a world where Rod Baker moves out for Montrezl Harrell, and it's all done behind the doors because you've got the same agent, he can sort it out, and it's like for like to a degree. But Montrez is just a better NBL player than what Rob Baker has shown. And I think Montrez with Sam Menenga would work really, really nice. You've got the mixture of a point guard similar to Kendrick Davis in Parker Jackson Cartwright, which would work well with Montrezl Harrell. I think it's the best team if you're looking at it. But are the New Zealand Breakers in the window to win a championship or contend for finals? As of right now, no. But we did see last year they love going out and grabbing a big name, a la Mr. Taco Fall, to put bums on seats. So that's probably the situation which makes the most sense from a game plan perspective, but also a club decision to get people into the arenas as well. What are your thoughts, mate? I'd love to weigh on this. And we didn't really speak about this, and we haven't at all. And it is some big news that he has been suspended for 3 months and is eligible to play as of right now. But what team do you reckon, if he could land on one, what it would be?
Yeah, so his ban started on the 4th of November, I think. So it's already 2 weeks in at the moment. So it will end on February 11th. I think it will end on February 4th. And I actually agree with you. I think New Zealand is the type of team that would get him. I don't think I saw that he needs to play at least 7 games to be eligible for a team to make finals and stuff. So I don't think any team's going to try and get him. I told you off there that we spoke to his agent today, and then he's because I asked the question, is like, is Trez actually serious about coming to NBL? We see his tweets and stuff. He kind of just speaks his mind. And his agent said, yeah, he wants to come back and win a championship for a team. That's a number one goal of his. I think he's got a point to prove. I think he can put all this stuff behind him now and do his 3 months. And yeah, I think Breakers is a good shout.
Yeah, I definitely. It's going to be interesting to watch where he does potentially land, either next season or potentially late in this season as well. I don't think that we're not going to see Montrez back in the NBL in future years. I think he will return to the league. He's just such a big draw card and the face of the league to a degree as well from an international standpoint. I think the NBL would be very stupid to not bring him back in some capacity, but I'm just not sure as of if it's going to be this season or not. That is going to be the biggest question and probably one of the bigger talking points throughout the rest of the season. Now, let's jump into some fan questions now. We have 4 here. I'm just going to pick 2 of these quickly. NBL Junkie, we did sort of talk about the Montrezl Harrell journey and what that may be over the next 3 years. So we've kind of answered that question a little bit. And if you want more clarification, 100%, thank you for the question. But if you want more clarification, we can do a little bit more of a bigger deep dive into that when we do have a bit more news potentially next week's episode. But Zach Pearson has asked us, any comments on how Xavier Cooks gets away from being suspended for the rest of the year with the horrible act of violence on Dave O'Hickey? Now, more tongue-in-cheek than anything, but the majority of this question is more centered around the second part of this. What are your overall thoughts on the reffing so far this year, and how can they improve? So, Jai, mate, what are your thoughts on the reffing so far?
I think it's been reactive. It's just been game by game. The fact that I saw, and the Xavier Cooks thing will divide people. I think people forget that Xavier Cooks and Will Hickey spent months together during the FIBA Asia Cup. They're friends. They know each other. So him pushing Will Hickey's leg down was just a smart-ass thing to do. Not malicious at all. Should he have done it? No, stupid. Like, the refs are just going to look at that and then do their thing. It was not an act of violence. That was ridiculous. But all I see when I see that is, right, if that's an act of violence and a tech, all my brain goes back is to, ironically, teammate Bull Qual last round was screaming in the ref's face against New Zealand Breakers, literally screaming because he got fouled out. And even PJC was like, how are you not giving him a tech? Like, that is what drives us and the fans insane. I get it's a hard job. Consistency's hard. Every ref has a different personality, reacts differently to players' temperaments and comments. So I think there needs to be a way where they're all on the similar wavelength, that if a player or a coach says this, let me put it this way. Refs need to do scout reports on teams and coaches. They need to be like, this guy has been in the league for this long, he acts like this. So if he does this, do not give him a tech for it, because this is just how it is. Same with coaches. I think the refs have to do their scouting report on the teams and stuff just to make it fair. I'm not saying that everyone needs to be treated the same, which, we're going off a rule book. That needs to be done. But that's not, in a perfect world, that'd be awesome. But unfortunately, everyone's reactive. Everyone works on emotions. It's just consistency. I just need to see the consistency.
Yeah, I echo all of your points there as well. And I don't have a different thought about it at all. I just don't think that the standard is up to where it should be. And yeah, there's too many egos. And the thing as well with referees, I want to just quickly chuck this in though, is 3 referees on the court. One's supposed to be the lead, but sometimes it doesn't look like there is a lead at all. It just looks like there's 3 referees fighting for Michael's right, Michael's right, Michael's right. And it does my head in sometimes when you kind of have, and again, I understand there's different angles and there's different things and everything like that as well, that you may see something different from the other side of the court to what I might be seeing on this side. But sometimes it just feels like they're trying to benefit their own journey or career by making the right call, and the other umpire doesn't make the right call, or whatever the case is. So there's some frustration building. I think every club nearly at some point this season in their post-game press conferences has mentioned the NBL refereeing. So it is a big problem. And Adam Ford said, apparently, again, I don't know if to believe this because it just could be 40 just being 40, but he said in the post-game press conference that Andrew Andrews, this was the game against the Adelaide 36ers, Andrew Andrews has been told by NBL referees, we're not going to give you those type of calls because you're a known flopper. Don't know if that's the case, right? And if it's completely true or not, but that's the wording that he used in that particular post-game press conference. And go and check it out. It kind of shocked me a little bit. And he goes on to talk about the refereeing and the missed foul calls that the NBL releases every year and everything as well. But I don't know. If that actually was said, that referee and that department should be under more fire and scrutiny than what it really is.
The issue with that is if now Andrew Andrews would take that and be like, right, they think I flop, I'm going to show them that I don't, and then he's going to do an aggressive play and drive it to try and get the whistle. And if he doesn't get it, he's going to be like, well, hold on, they keep saying I'm flopping. I literally didn't flop this time. This guy actually tunneled me, and I'm not getting the foul call. And he's going to crack it. They're going to give him a tech, and it's just going to blow up. And it's just going to be, he's going to feel like he's being gaslit. That is a stupid comment from, if that's real, that ref made that. And going back to your original comment earlier about the refs speaking to each other and stuff, during this Xavier Cooks play, I don't know if you saw it, but they literally zoomed in, and the refs' mics were on. The main ref was like, oh, I think that's a, act of violence. What do you think? And the other ref's just like, oh, I wasn't paying attention. I was actually looking at this player. What do you think? And they go to the third ref. He's just like, no comment. It was just like, I think they all need to be in agreement before you give out a tech like that. That's the issue.
Yeah.
It's just like
100%.
There is obviously a ref hierarchy, so it's interesting.
We'll see what happens in future weeks. Anyways, it is kind of a forever going and improving sort of environment.
It'll never stop.
It never.
As long as there's sports, there will always be conversations about this.
100%. Until we can AI or robot referees where it takes the human element out of it, we are going to be consistently having these type of conversations in sports as well. Now, Members Only has asked, did the Perth Wildcats overpay for Sunday Dech this off-season, and would it have been better to have spent the money to have kept Ty Webster? I'm going to take this one quickly. Overpay is just not the right phrase at all. Like, I don't care. He wouldn't be on that much money. That's as simple as it is. He's a very good player, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's a guy who's on the same sort of money a Dejan Vasiljevic is, who would potentially be looked at as an overpaid player in the NBL with his production right now. And I think it's a little bit unfair to sort of be putting these sort of comments potentially on a guy who has had some injury problems to start the season. Calf complaints, working back into it. The roster is starting to establish themselves. It is also a deep roster there in Perth as well. I think when it comes down to the end of the season, he's going to be playing some meaningful minutes for this particular club. He's an outstanding defender, and once he finds his shot again, he will be a starter, I still believe, for this Perth Wildcats team. Maybe over Jaron Riley, that's going to be the biggest problem and concern, I guess, the question as well. But I don't think they've overpaid for him as per se this off-season. Now, would it have been better to have kept the money and spent it on Ty Webster? I'm still undecided about that, to be honest, as well, because I think this team is already pretty good. Like with Jaron Riley, you kind of get the defensive tangibilities and the playmaking and the scoring, whereas with Ty, it's a bit of a roller coaster, and he has also been very injury prone throughout his NBL career and basketball career as well. So I don't really believe they've overpaid for him this offseason, and I don't also believe that Ty Webster would be making this team a better team. What are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, like similar sentiments. I think Sunday's coming off an injury. I think he's too valuable come finals time to not play. They're obviously, I'm not sure what their game plan is, but someone did ask the question in the post-match press conference to John Riley and said, why did Dech get a DMP? And he's just like, I've got essentially so many mouths to feed, someone's going to miss out. I think a veteran like Sunday Dech is happy to sit back, let the young guys have a run around. But then when the important games come around finals time, they'll unleash him because he's too good of a player and he's a great defender.
100%. And the last question here as well, nice rapid-fire one on this one, mate. The Precedent fan, will Brisbane's new import trio be the best trio in the league? What are your thoughts, mate? Quick one here.
Nah, it's Adelaide.
Adelaide? Oh,
yeah.
I'm still keeping with Melbourne United. I think Jesse Edwards, Tyson Walker, and Milton Doyle is the best trio in the league, but I'm not disopposed because Bryce isn't in that import trio. You've got
sorry, I forgot.
That's the thing. That's where I'm like, he's an Aussie now, mate. He no longer
I'm
import.
so not used to that.
No, you've got
so
Troy
weird.
Brown, Zylan Cheatham, and Nick Rakasevich as their import trio in Adelaide. So it does throw 100%. If Bryce is import still, they're the best. But I still think it's Melbourne United, to be completely honest with you.
All right, then we'll have to go Melbourne United because I've seen more of a sample size and I know what I'm getting with them.
Yeah, perfect. All right, there we go. So thank you very much for your questions as always, and we will be answering a little bit more. We might even do something where we kind of spend maybe 25 to 30 minutes throughout the FIBA break, which is after this particular round, answering a few more of your questions, because I do feel like sometimes we get to this point of the episode, we're kind of running behind time and we're kind of skimming through a couple of these questions here and there as well. So make sure you keep loading up the questions, and like I said, we'll do a very, very big segment on talking and answering a lot of your questions in the future episodes. But Jai, because we are running out of time, round 10 preview is here. I want to just go each of us. Let's just sort of dive into one particular game that is grabbing our attention, and we'll go from there to round and wrap up the show, mate. So what's one game that potentially is drawing your fancy in round 10?
Yeah, I think my one is Tasmania versus Sydney. Tasmania are actually 2-0 against Sydney this season. I think based on the last time they lost was against Tasmania. I think it's a massive game. Sydney are in form. They want to get the win over Tasmania, continue the streak to go to 5. But at the same time, Tasmania undermanned as well. You expect Xavier Cooks just to go off, and Suarez as well with no Magna on the floor. But Tasmania need to win this game. The fans haven't tasted a victory at home since last time they played Sydney, and like it would be really bad to see that 1-7 record at home for a defend the island at MyState Bank Arena. It just would not be good.
I love that particular pick, and I'm probably going to go the other big rivalry game in this particular one with Melbourne United taking on the Perth Wildcats, and you've got Melbourne United who, you know, as of right now sit 11-2. They're 6-1 at home, I believe, on the season, and then they're 5-1 away from home. But this game is at John Cain Arena, where they're 6-1. But the interesting for me is the Perth Wildcats away record. They're 5-2 away from home this season, so traveling is no problem for them, it seems, at the moment, and they're just a team which is really starting to just get it going at the right time. And I think this is a slight danger game for Melbourne United. Every game in the NBL is a danger game, to be completely honest. But
well, this will be the first time JLA plays his former team.
Hey, and that's a massive storyline as well. So that's going to be a big matchup with him and Jesse Edwards. You've then got kind of the Finn Delaney matchup there with Christian Doolittle, Dylan Windler against Milton Doyle. You've got David Duke Jr. Who does he take? Does he take Chris Gordon? Does he take Milton Doyle potentially? And then you've got kind of that combination of Elijah Pepper, Ben Henschel, those type of players matching up against Tyson Walker, which could be Melbourne United's maybe a little avenue to getting on top of this particular game and exploiting that matchup as well. So I just think you're going to see two high-quality teams, two high-quality coaches going at it. I believe it's the last game of the round. I'm just going to double-check that quickly just to make sure, but I believe it is the last game. So 1:30 p.m. at John Cain Arena. That is WA time, so 4:30 Melbourne time as well. So that's going to be an absolute ripper, I think, as well. But this round's got some pretty good matchups as we head into the FIBA break as well. So you've got Adelaide taking on the Illawarra Hawks on Wednesday. You've got the Brisbane Bullets taking on the South Eastern Phoenix on Thursday. You have a double header on Friday night with the Illawarra Hawks taking on Melbourne United, then followed by the Perth Wildcats taking on the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. After that, you have the Cairns Taipans taking on the New Zealand Breakers, the South Eastern Phoenix taking on the Adelaide 36ers, and then the Tasmania Jack Jumpers taking on the Sydney Kings, followed by Melbourne United taking on the Perth Wildcats. So an absolute jam-packed week of NBL basketball in the lead up to the FIBA break. After round 10, there is going to be a lot of storylines I think are well and truly writing themselves as well, Jai. But over to you, mate. Been another incredible show. We've nearly hit the hour point. I'd imagine by the time this show is done, we will have hit that point. So thank you very much for sticking around if you have. But Jai, mate, floor over to you.
Yeah, I'm just happy to be back because I know 2 weeks felt like a long time, and I think we mentioned it off air. It's just, I can't believe it's FIBA break already. It still feels like it's flying. We spent the whole off season with the start of the off season begging for something to happen. Then we got one of the best off seasons in history, and now we're already in the FIBA break at round 10 in the NBL. So I think it's only just getting started. We've got 33 games this season, so it's just tip of the iceberg. Who knows what other drama is going to unfold? But I'm keen to get back and discuss next week and see what transpires over the weekend.
No, definitely. And I guess for everyone at home, obviously, it would be nice to have a little bit of a break from basketball, but rest assured we're going to be putting out plenty of content over the FIBA break. We've been talking about ideas off air. There's going to be top 25 re-updates. There's going to be top 10 new imports, everything like that, and then also plenty more content. So make sure you stick around, and also NBL Show will be back with, like we mentioned, an extended fan question as well. So make sure you head over to X and follow at NBL Pleb and at Josh Higgins Fox, I believe I've changed my name to, and get around it as well. Answer and ask as many questions as possible. And like I said, get involved. But that will wrap up today's episode of the NBL Show presented by Fox Sport. As we mentioned at the top of the show, though, Fox Sport NBL on your browser, Safari, Google, whatever it is, and Fox Sports Basketball on Facebook for all of the latest news and everything going on in the NBL world. But until next time, we will see you then.